The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing good. It's midnight here, technically Tuesday, but we're recording fresh after a 2-point win over the Los Angeles Clippers, and we officially get to talk about, for the first time in I don't know how long, like a real proper win streak, a 3-game win streak for this team. They are, ESPN just updated 30 seconds ago, they are the 8th seed as I look at these standings. And I have another fun stat for you, Mike. There are only two teams in the Western Conference that are at least 8-2 or better in their last 10 games. One of them is the Phoenix Suns. Do you know who the other one is?
Houston?
It is Houston. It is not the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are 7-3.
Yeah.
Not the Memphis Grizzlies, 7-3. Not the Denver Nuggets, 7-3. It is Houston and Phoenix. We played a little bit of a cupcake schedule recently, but barely scraped out the victory tonight. But you do have to take it. So feeling pretty good.
Is this the best win of the season for the Suns?
No.
What
we say
what
that
could
we
be?
say that after every win that they have against a decent team. What would
they
be
don't
the
have
best
a
win?
lot. I mean, there's not
the
many
Lakers,
to choose from when it comes to that.
Lakers blowout.
No, the Lakers are not. I mean, I guess they are higher in the standings.
The Lakers are 26-18. That was a big deal. I would even say the win they had over Detroit on the road the other week was a pretty big deal.
That was a good win too, but that's not very. That's a 500 team.
Yeah, I just don't think it
Clippers
was
are 6 games above 500.
I just don't think it was this. I really don't.
They beat the Nuggets, right? They beat the Nuggets on Christmas, so that's pretty satisfying. But they was surrounded by a lot of other poor performances, so it wasn't as satisfying. They haven't beat the Thunder. I don't think they've beat the Rockets. I don't think they've beat the Grizzlies. So we're looking at the standings here. They have a win against the Lakers, a win against the Nuggets, a win against the Clippers.
They're going to be playing those teams a lot more as we wind down the season.
Stretch,
Nobody look at the remaining strength of schedule if you don't want to be a little bit anxious about that, because it's coming. That's all I'll say there.
Every team has a soft portion of the schedule, and you have to just win those games. And the Suns, actually, I think they left a few of those games on the table still, but they still found a way to win enough to be in the 8th seed. Currently, they're 3 games above 500. And it's kind of interesting for them to win in the way that they have recently. Obviously, Nick Richards, the biggest change. But Bradley Beal he's off the bench now and just kind of hasn't really been there much lately. This game in particularly, and we'll get to Bradley Beal too, but this game in particular I thought had a lot of really interesting stuff happening. Ty Lue essentially taking Nick Richards out of the game, who has, I think, been good in most of the games he's played on the Suns so far. But the Suns had to find ways to win this, and actually saw a lot more of the types of plays they were running when they had Chris Paul on the team, when Monty was coaching. A lot of those like Spain type pick and rolls, which just like an exit cut in the middle of the pick and roll, a guy just sort of cutting to the wing because of the way the Clippers were switching. And Book was making a lot of really great passes in this game and finding guys who were shooting threes. But in this game, they were running, they were shooting threes. Like, those are the things that they need to do offensively to beat good teams. And in this game, there was a lot of intention, I think, to do that.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the Clippers' strategy there. I think it's interesting. Obviously, when you play Ty Lue, you kind of know they're going to go small at a certain point, and so they did eventually get there. But not until the second half, I think, and more so in the first half, they were just being really aggressive with the Suns and doing a lot of overhelping on defense, which I think in general, like, you can look at the stat line tonight, you can look at the box score and see that the Suns committed 17 turnovers. Like, I think there's intention behind doing that. You want to pressure the ball when it's going to be Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, or KD handling it as much as possible. But we had the right role players contributing just the right amount, like standing in the corners, and Tyus was 5 for 8 from deep, and Grayson was 4 for 7 from deep, and Royce was
really good first half from Grayson.
Royce was
too.
3 for 8. And so all of these guys, as you're pointing out, obviously Book is kind of the guy who was mostly directing those passes. But they don't win this game without the great contribution that they got from all of their role players who were able to provide them the proper spacing and just give the offense the lift that it needed. And then eventually you get to the second half and they do go small, and Nick Richards does come out of the game. I don't think it's just because of that. I think it's also because Nick Richards was pretty bad in general tonight. But
Mason
briefly,
was plus 22 in this game. Took a lot of heat online, but was plus 22 in this game.
Well, that's exactly where I was going with this. Is like briefly, we went super small to match. And then I think after a minute or two, Bud pulled that and said, okay, I'm just going to close basically the whole fourth quarter with Mason Plumlee. And he played 26 minutes, and he took one shot, which he missed. And every time he caught the ball inside, you knew it wasn't going to be a bucket, because unfortunately that's who Mason Plumlee is. But somehow miraculously he finished this game with plus 22, had several blocks, moved the ball well from side to side, and was pretty good and deserved to be the guy who closed this game. It was honestly really interesting game from Mason.
The level of which Zubats is good compared to the Suns bigs is nuts.
Zubats is so good. He's one of my favorite. He might be my favorite non-all-star big to watch.
Well, he was. I mean, we're on the right side of history with Zubats. Like I was saying, we've been talking about on this podcast that he's been pretty good for a while, underrated. I think I called him one of the most underrated players in the NBA, and now I don't think that's true. I think he's properly rated. He's just had a really good season, but he also, I think, in particular, plays the Suns really well every time he plays against the Suns for some reason. But like if you just look at the rebounding battle alone, Nick Richards, who was doing well in his 20 minutes, 7 rebounds. Mason Plumlee, 6 rebounds. Zubac, 16 rebounds total in 34 minutes that he played for the Clippers. Also 25 points and was plus 9 when he played with 4 assists. Just an awesome game for him. But he's just a Suns killer. He's just one of those guys that the Suns really struggle to stop whenever they play against them. It was 12 for 17.
They struggle against strong physical dudes because, I hate to just reduce it all down to, a lot of times they don't have that dog in them, but a lot of times they don't have that dog in them. Yeah. Well, okay. So on the season, Zubats is averaging 15. I mean, this is crazy. He's averaging 15 and 12 and a half, not to mention 2.5 assists. That's also a career high for him. And like every hook shot goes in. And this is what it is like he's just the epitome of a role player big. You're not running your offense through him, but he can cook a mismatch. And he's kind of like a harder working version of what Ayton was in some ways on the Suns, right? Where
without the mid-range shots,
no mid-range shot for sure, but like that lunch pail guy who Zubats reminds me of what Ayton was when he was at his best. For the Suns, with really just bringing a level of activity and focus and concentration that just grinds the other team down, basically. Right. And he's historically been able to do that to us. Almost did it to us tonight, but they were able to persevere.
Really solid defensive player too, which adds to all the benefits of having him on the team. But I think just to touch a little bit more on what sort of took Nick Richards out of this game. A lot of people were like asking why he wasn't playing. I think this is a great example. We saw him play a lot against bad teams. Like he joined the team at the right time in order to make a really good first impression, right? The teams that he's played against so far are Detroit, who is pretty good. Don't get me wrong. Cleveland, who's great. And he was not good in that game, just to remind people of that Cleveland game. Brooklyn and Washington. So those are the games that he played previously for the Suns. And he was really good against Washington, pretty good against Brooklyn, and really good against Detroit, which was his debut game.
Who did Brooklyn?
19 and 15 rebounds in those previous 2 games.
Who did Brooklyn start? Nick Claxton?
Yeah, I think Claxton started.
So he went against Claxton and Alex Sarr in the last 2 games.
But I actually think, Zubats notwithstanding, I think he does fine. But I actually think teams that have really active wing defenders can actually cause some problems for him too. It's actually pretty similar to what we saw. I hate to bring up DeAndre Ayton again, but it's a good reference point for a lot of Suns fans because there's so much conversation around him over the years. The difference between how New Orleans played DeAndre in the playoffs, which is sort of give him the middle of the floor, and how Dallas, the very next series, played against DeAndre Ayton was to pressure up on him at the top of the key so that if they're trapping, they have a third defender that doesn't give him the space to move. That's what the Clippers did today. And I think with what Nick Richards does, he's going to get a lot done on the Suns just by being really active. And I have to give him a lot of credit because the last two games, I don't want to focus on why he struggled in this game only. The last two games finishing with 6 offensive rebounds, 19 rebounds, and then 4 offensive rebounds and 15 rebounds. That's really, really impressive for him to come onto a team, not fully know the playbook probably yet, still getting his bearings with this team, still finding chemistry, and finding ways to contribute on the rebounding end of the floor is really impressive. Not to mention he's had a game with 21 points and a game with 20 points. But he's still limited as an offensive player. There's not any dribbling there, right? There's no shooting, really, and the passes, he can make easy passes. He's an NBA player. He's played in the NBA. He can make the easy passes, but there's not going to be any advanced reads, especially quickly when he catches the ball. So if you have a guy right up in his space when he catches the ball, that's going to be a turnover a lot of the time because he's just not capable. And if you play up on him maybe a little bit less, so you're not immediately turning it over, if he tries to drive on you, every once in a while he'll probably get a dunk, to be honest. He's fast for his size. But you can poke that ball free if he's dribbling a little bit too much. He really just one dribble at most, and he can get to the rim. And that's what they did in this game, right? They were bringing a ton of help. They were trying to force the ball to him in the middle of the floor and taking away all of his space. And good teams who have good defenders who can read the floor really well are going to put that kind of pressure on him. And it'll be up to the Suns to find ways to react. And to Mason's credit, he can catch it in the middle of the floor and make better reads with the ball in those scenarios. It's not like he's going to rack up a ton of assists, but the reads can be fast enough that the ball continues to move in order to find the shooters like it did in this game. And that's why Mason played a little bit more. But it'll be interesting to see what different teams do against Nick Richards as the Suns play better and better opponents with him.
I think the really interesting thing to see because, another thing we were debating before tonight's game was who was going to get the start. I think based on the second half of the Wizards game when Ryan Dunn went down with his ankle injury and Bradley Beal started the second half, we were actually anticipating that maybe Brad would start tonight.
And I was hoping Royce would start too, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I was pleasantly surprised to see Royce start tonight. And I think, by the way, Royce had a fantastic game. I think he finished with 4 steals, and just his level of activity was incredible. He poked the ball away from Harden and Kawhi a couple of times, forcing jump balls and stuff. Like, he was just really good. But also, I'll be curious, because I don't think Ryan Dunn's injury is serious. And so one thing I will be monitoring is how he coexists long-term in those lineups with Nick Richards, because it's not as much of a problem as we saw tonight with the Suns, if a defense is going to be more aggressive in Richards' space, and Book is able to circumvent that by passing out to the wing and rotating the ball and finding a corner shooter, right? And if those two corners are occupied by essentially either two of Tyus Jones, Grayson Allen, and Royce O'Neal, as they were tonight, well, then you always have corner shooters on the floor. If one of those spots is occupied by Ryan Dunn, then it becomes a bit of a different beast, and you're just going to have to find other ways to work around it offensively. But yeah, it worked tonight, and it was just good to see.
And Brad, by the way, 8-man rotation in this game. It was, I think, when we're playing a good team like the Clippers have been this year, to see the rotation shortened like this, I thought was kind of interesting. And obviously, no Ryan Dunn impacted that. I think Ryan Dunn would have eaten some of these minutes from these guys and probably played pretty well. Although the Suns benefited from Kawhi Leonard being pretty bad in this game. I'm not sure they would have needed Ryan Dunn to stop him. He ended 7 for 14 actually, but I think for
still
what
hit some shots
and still hit some shots at the end. But for what you expect out of Kawhi,
can we be honest?
He's coming back. I mean, he's coming.
Well,
back
first of all, just to keep it in reference, this was only the Clippers' second loss since Kawhi returned. And he's been only playing some games since he returned, and then he sits like back-to-backs and other stuff.
But the end of this game too.
But they're 6-2. Yeah, well, he's still on a minutes restriction. He played 28 minutes tonight. But they're still 6-2 when Kawhi plays.
Yeah.
He's also just not I don't know. Is this just what he is now?
Maybe.
Right?
You mean the way he moves?
Yeah, the way he
Mm.
moves. He can be manipulated a little bit more on defense, especially, and offense. Like, yeah, he's gonna find his way to the basket. He's still strong as hell and has a great mid-range jumper, but like, I don't know. I don't want to like throw too much dirt on Kawhi because who knows? Like you're saying, he is ramping back, and the Clippers will probably be there in the playoffs, and maybe has a hell of a playoff series, but I also wouldn't just like totally brush it aside that maybe this is just who Kawhi is at this point in his career. Norm Powell leads that team now.
Yeah, I mean, well, James Harden's still pretty good. He can still do some things with the ball, and did some of that in this game. 24 points, 10 assists against the Suns, but did have 7 turnovers for James Harden. So Royce O'Neal, by the way, getting out there and getting steals, had 4 steals in this game. Multiple strips of James Harden, who was just dribbling right in front of him. Really, really good game by Royce O'Neal on the defensive end in this game. Did a great job specifically on James. Brad, I want to talk about Brad because there were moments in this game where I didn't even notice he was on the floor. Ended it with a couple of clutch free throws. Overall, if you look at the stats in this game for him, 9 points, 4 assists, 4 turnovers, 3 for 8 shooting, 1 for 5 from 3 in 33 minutes. It's just a weird thing now with Brad where you just don't know what to expect of him on a night-to-night basis. And I do think the Suns do occasionally create open shots for him where they swing it to him as if he's Grayson, as if he's Royce, and he's getting open threes. He's able to shoot those open threes. I do think sometimes they don't do him favors in that they swing it to him and there's 9 seconds left on the shot clock, and then they all stand around and back up and try to let him cook. And admittedly, like, that's kind of what you need him to do sometimes, is to create in those scenarios. That's why you have stars who can create.
It's sort of almost like they're going through the thought process of Book or KD is going to start with it, and they're going to be like, I'm the first or second option or whatever. I'm going to try my thing. And if that doesn't work, okay, Brad, now you go. You're the backup plan. But you're right, it's not.
You have 8 seconds to dribble against the defender and shoot with no one setting you a screen.
Yeah.
And all of us just standing around and not moving. That's a little unfair to him, I think. Maybe have a little bit more that you can do in that scenario. Maybe move him around a little bit more. Maybe use him as a handoff guy because that's something he's actually been really good at, especially if you give him that handoff under the 3-point line where he's particularly good with it. But even still, like, I do think there's more that he can do offensively and defensively to benefit himself a little bit more. But I think the Suns are in a really tough position with him right now where he's not starting, obviously. And when he is on the floor, like, they're often running the ball through Grayson Allen.
Who's been great, by the way.
Who has been really good, yeah. And he has even had times where he's creating shots for himself at the rim, which is not really something you can expect out of Grayson, who had 18 points tonight. Maybe one of his better games of the season, I thought, because defensively he was really good too. But yeah, I don't know. Really, it's he's been in trade rumors, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think we can excuse it because what are we thinking? Where is Brad's mind right now?
Yeah,
is it in Phoenix?
Yeah,
is it in It's probably not in Miami. Is it in Chicago? Is it in?
Apparently not.
Is it in Cancun? Like, we really we don't know. And you're right. We don't know what we're gonna get from him on any given night. Although I also kind of feel like we've never known with Brad, at least in his son's tenure, what we're gonna get from him on any given night. There's always sort of been a big difference between his ceiling and his floor compared to the other two guys. Here's what he gets credit for, is that Brad continues to play despite the fact that he was a starter for his entire career and now is not a starter and theoretically holds all the cards in these trade negotiations as he is the one with the no trade clause, right? But he continues to play. He's on the court. He's in practice. He's being his smiling self. The Suns are, what are they, 6-3 now with him coming off the bench?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's what it is. I think I saw that on the broadcast. Meanwhile, across the country, and I know maybe you didn't want me to steer the conversation over here this soon, but across the country, there's a guy who is prepared to lose $500,000 a game to not play for his team because they said that they're going to bring him off the bench. I just think, say what you will about Brad's fit, but he has always brought a level of professionalism to this entire thing. Even though I think all of us kind of understand that it's just not working, he continues to be a professional and I don't know, a good guy. Yeah, can't say that about everyone.
Did you see the tweet from his wife, by the way? I don't know if we talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw it, of course.
So there was a tweet, if anyone didn't see it, from Brad's wife, just talking about a Suns fan heckling Brad during the game to the extent that his kids were like, why is that guy doing that? and then security stepped in and I think probably told him to stop or kicked him out or moved him. I don't know what happened.
I think they kicked him out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe just moved him. I'm not
There was
sure.
some ambiguity there because, you don't expect her to tell the whole story. We don't need that from her, but really unfortunate situation. Like, leave him alone, dude. Of course, this is part of being an athlete, right? Your name's going to be in trade rumors. People are going to talk about opportunities to improve the team at any cost, with guys. Brad is one of two players in the NBA, like you said, who holds all the cards in this scenario where he decides if he's being traded. He decides where he's being traded if he ends up being traded. So that's a nice situation for him to be in. It's him and LeBron are the only two guys in the NBA who have that opportunity. But leave him alone at games. That's a weird thing to do. It's just a weird thing to do, to shout at him, especially as a Suns fan, because he has been professional. He has not complained. And, at times he looks great. At times he doesn't. But that was the case when he was a starter as well. And I think maybe that's just kind of who he is right now at this point of his career.
Look, the only thing I'll say about that is I think like fans, especially, you get to the lower bowl, you get within a certain distance of the players, you spend hundreds of dollars or whatever to be in those positions. And, it can come with, obviously not everyone, not even the vast majority of fans, but occasionally it can come with this sense of entitlement that you're paying this much and you get to like speak your mind. And a certain amount of heckling is okay at NBA games, but also it's like, you find out pretty quick that real life is not like what you say on your Twitter account or what you might say about these players online. So you're going to get treated pretty differently, and there are going to be consequences.
I want to talk about Jimmy since you brought that up. But before we get there, what do you think about the decision to tell Grayson to miss that free throw at the end of the game?
Oh, that's a really interesting question because I actually wasn't going to bring that up here on the pod, but I did want to know, I think. Just your thoughts.
Well, I can say this. Kind of a weird choice, right? Because I could see I actually think if the Clippers had another timeout, either way, I think it's kind of a weird choice. But having no timeout for the Clippers means that if Grayson makes it, they're not advancing the ball. So they have to take it out under the Suns basket with 1.5 seconds left or whatever it is, and then attempt a shot essentially from full court. Now, there always is a chance, of course, that they have guys down the court and they make a miraculous pass all the way down the court and are able to take that shot to try to tie the game at their end of the floor. And to be fair to Bud, it worked. Grayson missed it. Norm Powell launched a full
either
court
way,
shot.
Either one that you choose is going to work 98% of the time, or something.
That's a good point. Yes.
So I think it's kind of splitting hairs a little bit, but I do think from a strategic perspective, it's kind of interesting. I guess it's just like they must have, I don't know, someone, maybe not the Suns, but someone must have data on taking the ball out under the basket in a situation like that. If you're setting up a shot, what's your chance of success to make a three there? I mean, you're going to have some screens, you're going to have a couple of shooters, but then you basically need to quarterback it and just land it in the absolute perfect spot. And even if a guy gets a shot off, obviously if he makes it, now you're only going to overtime. So you still have to go and win in overtime.
maybe there's data. Maybe there's just like a philosophy. If it's less than 2 seconds, you miss it. Like maybe just Bud has an idea on this. He clearly, because it didn't seem like Grayson agreed in real time. Like Grayson was like, "What? Are you serious?" Like there was a look on his face. There was a long conversation with Grayson standing at the free throw line, looking at the bench, trying to figure out what was going to happen.
Well, yeah, I think it's also like, I don't know. It's how much time was on the clock? Like 1.7 or
yeah,
something?
that's something like that. Yeah.
The Clippers almost got the best case scenario. Obviously, they missed the shot, but they almost got the best case scenario just by getting a shot off at all. Because I feel like most of the time you got 1.7 seconds left. Yeah, just to get up a shot is pretty impressive. If you miss intentionally off the rim there, first of all, there's a chance you get an offensive rebound. That's like a 25% chance right there. Even if you don't get the offensive rebound, it's going to be a kind of long defensive rebound. So they have to scramble to the ball and then get it up, maybe with a hand in their face, and get the shot off. I don't know. I just feel like there's a very, very good chance there that they're not even going to be able to get a shot off. Before the buzzer sounds, Norm Powell did, and he actually made it look a little bit closer than I was expecting. But I don't know. I don't think it was the wrong decision per se.
We're recording this immediately after the game, so I'm sure Monty's going to be asked about this. Let me take a quick glance.
You got
Twitter.
Monty brain. You mean Bud?
Yeah, I was thinking about Monty today too because I've done this multiple times on the podcast recently. By the way,
you just think that Monty is still the coach of the Suns?
Yeah.
This entire time they've all been
not my president.
Different flavors of Monty.
Yeah, exactly.
Should we talk about Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, let's talk about Jimmy Butler because I think that we're just in such an interesting point of the rumor mill where the rumors or the slop, if you will, is starting to like stack on top of each other where we're just getting layers upon layers upon layers of rumors. And this is the new thing that's happened. This was not a rumor. This is an actual story that happened with Jimmy Butler. Now, Jimmy Butler, just to sort of recap everything as quickly as possible, by all accounts, by all trustworthy news reporters, Jimmy Butler is trying to force his way to the Phoenix Suns. Not just off of the Miami Heat. To the Phoenix Suns. Like, it's pretty clear that there's some level of backdoor dealings that guarantee Jimmy Butler that he's going to be given an extension if he makes it to the Phoenix Suns. Now, that's all just been reporting. Gambo's even thrown out a number. Like, that's how far this reporting has come. So it's pretty clear that he's trying to force his way to the Suns. He has been suspended twice already from the Miami Heat prior to today. Today, he shows up at shoot-around. The Miami Heat tell Jimmy Butler that he is not going to start for the team. Haywood Highsmith's going to start.
Shout out to Haywood Highsmith.
Yeah, a player that we've talked about on this podcast before as somebody we wanted on the Suns.
Another lunch pail role player.
A starter in the NBA, apparently.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Butler got mad and left, and they suspended him indefinitely at minimum 5 games, which probably leads up to the trade deadline. No coincidence, I think, in that number of games. But like Jimmy knows what he's doing leaving that practice. There was a plane ride that he was late to. They suspended him for last time. He is, I think, playing all the cards that he has, including paying money because he's not getting paid for these games that he's being suspended for. Millions of dollars that he's losing on this season currently to try to force his way off the Miami Heat and, by all the reporting, to the Phoenix Suns. And it's just a really weird time in this story where a lot of times, and including us on this podcast, we've said it about KD. We ask the question, why aren't they doing more, the players, to be disruptive in order to get to the teams that they want to play on? And this is why, because they're suspended and they lose a bunch of money if they do more, the way that Jimmy is. But I don't know. Where are your thoughts on what's happening right now with this?
Well, yeah, so Jimmy certainly has a flair for the dramatic and is, enjoys being a controversial guy a little bit, I think. So I guess that doesn't surprise me. You're right in that he's trying to play every card he has. There are 2 issues with that. One, he's still dealing with Pat Riley, who is as stubborn as they come, obviously. And 2, The Suns might be the only team that wants Jimmy Butler still to this day.
Well, he's trying to make sure of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty clear. Like, there was a leaked report that he doesn't want to go to Memphis. There was another report that he doesn't want to go to Milwaukee that may or may not be true, apparently, depending on who you believe. But that comes from somewhere.
It does, but we've had cases of star players before where it's like you trade for them midseason. If you're a good team, if you're Milwaukee, if you're Memphis, whatever, if you truly have ambitions to take this player into your system and maybe win a championship with them, that you'd be able to persuade them into that
Milwaukee
extension.
just did that last year with Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
Dame was trying to force his way to Miami to play with Jimmy Butler, and Milwaukee traded for him anyway. The results have been a bit up and down, but they're playing well right now. And he seems to be okay. You know, but he's not Jimmy. He's not, like, if you're Memphis, do you really want this in your locker room right now? Him, a guy who has shown what he's willing to do when he's somewhere he doesn't want to be?
Can I ask a better question?
Sure.
If you're Phoenix, do you really want this in your locker room right now?
I mean,
why is that not the question?
No, you're right.
Ask every day.
The difference is that he is trying to force his way here.
Yeah, I continue to think
that's the difference.
He's a phenomenally talented basketball player. I just continue to think that he's trying to force his way here, not for some great love of the city of Phoenix, although it is a fine city, but you know, he wants the money. And if another team is willing to pony up and give him that money, he'll suck it up. I think he would.
Yeah, maybe that's the issue, is none of them have said that they...
Honestly, man, that's all I think it is that Ishbia, it's like kind of a mid-off between who can seem more desperate. And if you're the Suns right now, the worst thing that you could do, now that here's this guy, you know, losing $500,000 per game missed while he's suspended, although, you know, he might like bring this to a third-party court or something and try and win back some of the money via arbitration or something, right?
No, he definitely will. The NBAPA has already said they're going to appeal this. Not this one, but the previous suspensions.
Right, and so presumably they'll appeal this one too. I don't know if he'll win all that money back, but he'll get at least some of it back.
I bet he will. Yeah, some of it, yeah.
But if you're the Suns and there's not an obvious market... If you really want this guy, and I still kind of don't want this guy, but I'm going to argue from this. That's fine. I'm going to argue from the Suns' perspective. If you really want this guy, don't bid against yourself for the next 2 weeks. That's the key.
I think you could make the case that the Heat have done everything they possibly can to lose leverage right now. And, you know, like, because all of this drama, including all the suspensions and all of it being leaked publicly and all of it around the team, obviously starts with Jimmy and his actions, for sure. But like suspending him immediately and really turning him on the team more and more and more over time, giving the players on the team opportunities to post on Instagram and tweet about it the way Kevin Love and Jimmy Butler have done, make jokes about the team online. I don't know that why would other teams say, okay, now we'll put in another first round pick for you? You know, like at this point, they're doing a lot to lose leverage. It doesn't necessarily mean they will. Like, I think the Suns' offer is the Suns' offer because the Suns' offer is dictated by what they can or can't give. But like, it's a weird situation where I agree with you. They can't outbid themselves. They have to hold firm. And if Jimmy does what Jimmy does, then either they're going to accept it or they don't. And if they don't, then you held firm. You did what you could. You didn't play yourself, which is, I think, something they definitely can do.
Hashtag don't play yourself for this trade deadline, I think is a very worthy piece of advice because honestly, man, there's just a universe where like there are plenty of media sources, plenty of outlets, not even outlets, just individual people kind of trying to throw water on this whole thing right now.
Including Gambo.
Sure, and I consider Gambo to be a reliable source. And of course, he could change, you know, his tune in the next 2 weeks. But there are universes where you walk away 2 weeks from now with no Jimmy, but you're able to pivot to something else.
Get off Nurkic, maybe, yeah.
You get off Nurkic, you bolster your center rotation. Maybe you have Beal for the second half of the season. You make the most of it with him as your sixth man, and you do your best in the playoffs and reevaluate in the summer. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. But to play yourself and tell yourself that you need Jimmy, that you're desperate for this guy. I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't feel that way about him. I've never felt that way.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's an interesting situation for the team to be in because there's a lot that can happen if they don't trade for Jimmy. We'll just say that. But let's quickly just talk about Gambo too and how he's been talking about this trade, because I do think there is a way to read reports where you can kind of figure out what's posturing. To be frank, all of the Miami Heat reporters kind of do the bidding of the Miami Heat organization. I don't think Gambo's really been doing that at all, because his line on the Suns situation and where it currently stands is that the Suns really want Jimmy Butler and the Heat aren't interested. And that's like not posturing that benefits the Suns in any way, right? That only really benefits the Miami Heat. And that's just a situation where I just don't think it's posturing that benefits the Suns. So I don't think it comes from a quote unquote, you can call it this, a dishonest place, which I think sometimes when you're doing the bidding and you're reporting the posturing, you're reporting what they told you, but you have to add some level of maybe understanding the bias of where that source is coming from if you're a good reporter. And Gambo, I think, has done a good job of not doing that.
Failing that the Miami Heat are obviously not interested in Bradley Beal, the other thing that Gambo could do if he wanted to posture would be, well, here are all these teams that are willing to facilitate the 3 or 4 or 5 team trade that are willing to take on Bradley Beal. And he hasn't done that either. And whether those teams exist has been the source of quite a bit of conjecture.
Well, yeah, let's move on to that then.
Over the past couple of weeks, generating, I think, some really fascinating names that maybe are or are not real.
Well, we talked about on our Patreon pod, those who are not patrons, of course, which is 95% of you listening to this right now, of course. But Jake Fisher, who is a reporter for Yahoo, is that where he works now? I forget where he works.
Yes.
Or isn't he on Mark Stein's Substack or something like that? Anyway, Jake Fisher used to work. That
doesn't seem like a real thing.
I think it is actually. And Jake Fisher used to work for Yahoo, and I think that's where he writes now. And the point is, he reported that the Suns actually could be interested in Zach LaVine if things don't work out with Jimmy Butler. Now, to me, I'll be honest, using my what's posturing and what's not brain, that sounds like it could be posturing. Like, that sounds like the Suns will go, fine, we'll just take this guy. That probably takes less assets if we're being honest.
It's also Jake Fisher.
And it's Jake Fisher too, right?
Guy,
so it's not Gambo. Yeah, no, Gambo has earned respect in this scenario, and Jake Fisher sometimes is right and sometimes is wrong, and that's just that is the game sometimes, right? That's the reporting game sometimes, but we have to call it out. That is what it is. But we talked about it on the podcast. There is a world where if you can't get Jimmy Butler, if you can trade for Zach LaVine for less assets and get off of Bradley Beal's no trade clause, I think there's a benefit to that. Like, I'll just ask it this way, Sam. Do you think Zach LaVine would have been better than Bradley Beal in the game today?
Yes, Zach LaVine is
I
obviously...
think he would have been better.
So Zach LaVine is younger than both Bradley Beal and Jimmy Butler. He's cheaper than both of them. He would cost fewer assets in a trade than Butler would, obviously, which would allow you to then preserve those other assets, either use them in a Nurkic trade and improve your rotation elsewhere, or hold on to those picks and have cost-controlled young players coming into your rotation. So honestly, I think there's a very compelling case to be made about, hey, what if we do what everyone's going to think is a stupid thing and zag and get this player instead? For me, it's not 100% posturing. It's like, that's kind of interesting, actually. But
well, yeah,
that being said,
interesting. But whether or not the Suns are actually interested is
no, I don't actually think the Suns are interested in Zach LaVine. I'm just saying I might be interested in Zach LaVine, but I don't know how much people care what I think.
Yeah, there's a world where maybe they can get Zach LaVine and they can trade Nurkic and get another center that could actually maybe be better than Mason Plumlee, for example. And that is just a kind of interesting combination of things that could happen here. But to add to that, if we're talking about slop being stacked on top of slop, we have a report from Fred Katz with The Athletic that said Bradley Beal would not approve a trade to the Chicago Bulls, first. And secondly, his priorities are a winning team, but he would like it to be in a warm weather place as well. which is an important thing apparently for Bradley Beal at this point. Doesn't want, I guess, Milwaukee either. Is that like he's kind of crossing off the Bucks too as an option?
What's funny is if you look at the Eastern Conference standings, the reason this report is so funny, this just came out today. If you look at the Eastern Conference standings, you realize the extent to which, every good team is in a cold weather city.
Yeah.
You've got Boston, cold,
which
New York.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, sure. But even, regardless of that, Boston, cold, Cleveland, cold, New York, cold, Chicago, cold and not good. Who else is there? Philly, not good.
Orlando
is the
warm,
one,
right?
Orlando is the one 500 plus team in the East that is warm. And they definitely don't want Bradley Beal. I don't
think
sure
they do either. Yeah, it's just too much salary.
By the way, the reason, I think Brad was tied to Chicago, because I'm not sure we ever explicitly said it. It's not just that, like Chicago, okay, it's a couple things. Chicago is a cool city. It's one of the biggest cities in the U.S. There's a lot of stuff to do there. You don't get bored in a city like that. Has a rich basketball history. Their front office is kind of dumb, and maybe you would be interested in Bradley Beal.
They're addicted to being mediocre.
That's important.
Yeah.
But of course, the other thing from Brad's perspective is that they're coached by Billy Donovan, and that was who coached him back when he was at the University of Florida.
Yeah.
And they have maintained a good relationship all these years later. So that's why Chicago specifically was relevant.
And there was a lot.
And now
of
Fred
chatter.
Katz has continued to, or is determined to kill that for us too.
There was a lot of chatter about the Bulls, like in any rumor from relatively credible people across the internet and podcasts and all that linked Chicago to any potential Jimmy Butler trade for the Suns. So there's a reason they kept coming up over and over and over again. And the question was whether or not. Well, the first question for me is why would they want him? But apparently it seems like there was at least some chatter that said they were willing to take him. But Brad saying no is a different part of the equation where that just ends it, really, if that's true, which we got to give Fred Katz credit here because I don't think there's any reason this would not be true. That just ends it. You can't do that anymore, at least in a one-for-one trade. There are other machinations of trades that work if there's a place that he's approved to go. But it really makes you just step back a little bit, at least it did for me, and go, nothing's probably happening with Brad right now, right? I mean, it did for me at least, because I'm like, where is he going to go? Because warm weather, winter. Okay, Lakers? Do you think the Lakers are going to put that salary together for him?
Lakers or Clippers? First of all, no, I don't.
I don't think either of those teams will, yeah.
I also just kind of don't think this report is true. Is that okay to say? Like, I think we have to talk about it because it's the fresh slop. And I understand what you're saying. Like, there's rumors on top of rumors. We've got the Inception thing going, but why would this be true? I don't know.
Why would it be true that he doesn't want to go there?
Why would it be true that I just can't possibly wrap my head around this idea? Brad is being heckled by fans who are paying thousands of dollars to sit near him.
Yeah.
The team is not that good. He's coming off the bench. Like, cool. It's 70 degrees in January. You can't be having that much fun, dude. I just don't. I don't see it. I don't see it. Yeah. I respect the fact that he's willing to play and be a professional. And I'm trying not to be like the body language police or anything either. But like I look at the vibes around the team, and I don't know. I don't see guys who are just dying to continue doing this for another 3 months. So that's all of that is to say that I think they're still working the phones, obviously. And anything could still happen in the next 2 weeks. But how hard is Miami going to make it for us? How hard would a potential third team like Chicago make it for us, or Milwaukee? I don't know. It's not for a lack of trying on Phoenix's part, if it doesn't happen.
Let's talk about Nurkic. Nurkic not playing, not really even going on a road trip. They went on a road trip recently, wasn't at any of those games, and still found a way to be reported on because Dwayne Rankin, to his credit, wrote an excellent article with lots of quotes from Nurkic, where Nurkic claims that Coach Mike Budenholzer hasn't spoken to him in 2 months, and went on just a bunch of rants about the Phoenix Suns, and I think pointed a lot of fingers in other directions and claimed to not be doing that. I don't know. There's just so much to talk about from this article. Where do you want to start?
Life is not fair, he said.
Yeah.
Among his many quotes to Dwayne, as I just pulled up the article here.
He did.
Where do I want to start? First of all, the 2 months thing. Speaking of things that are just flat out not true. There is no way, absolutely no way that those two went. Remember, Budenholzer, in a show of good faith in the summer, went out to Croatia, not Bosnia. I had to be reminded it was Croatia.
Yeah.
Where Nurkic was training in the summer and tried to make a good first impression. And that was August when he did that. Are you telling me that between August and basically October, because that's when it would have had to be for this article to be true, that something so disastrous, so catastrophic erupted between these two people that they ceased to have a relationship for 2 full months? It's just not true. Reading between the lines with what we know about Jusuf Nurkic, who, again, another player who has a flair for the dramatic, maybe they didn't talk for a while. Might have been a week. Nurkic seems to me, and I understand now we're approaching this, like, I hope this isn't slanderous, but, like, seems like the type of guy where maybe they wouldn't talk for a week, and he would say that it was 2 months. There is no way that they went 2 months without speaking. How do you feel about that aspect of it?
I have trouble believing it as well. I want to read some of the more interesting quotes from this. It is what it is. Life's not fair, is what he said. Here's I think one that really stood out to both of us. I know we were talking about it online. We don't have a relationship, Nurkic said, so it's fine. For me, just be a pro and do the best I can. Work and stay ready for whatever might be, but there's no chaos or bringing that to this team. They already have plenty of it. Trying to be as professional as I can and work my ass off for something else. So in the same quote, Nurkic claims to be a professional and to bring no chaos. As he's talking to a reporter, he tells the reporter that they already have plenty of chaos. I think what you could describe as not professional and bringing chaos to the team. An absurd quote. What do you think of that?
Yeah, just comes directly out of like the passive aggressive playbook. And I think that's what's bothered so many of us about this guy, beyond just, the fact that he's struggled on the court. He has physically struggled on the court to sustain any level of good play this year. And ultimately that's the reason he's being benched. But like other stuff that's just distracting in the locker room and making comments to the media and, adding reporters on Twitter, and not to mention fans. I mean, there's so many people who've been blocked by him on Twitter at this point because it obviously just occupies a little bit too much of his headspace. He thinks it motivates him, but it really doesn't. It makes him worse and makes him, make ultimately petty comments like this. And this is not what being a professional is, Nurk. I hope you remain in great health and stay ready for your next opportunity and ultimately get sent to a place where you feel that you can be used better, but it's just not how it's done, and leaves such a sour taste in my mouth and in everyone else's mouth. I think I'm ready for it to be over with this guy.
He said multiple times, he said, I'm glad that Bud found somebody who he likes and can play, about Nick Richards. Here's a quote. I'm glad Bud found somebody who he likes, he can play. I think that's refreshing for him to rotate 4 centers, which he's not, by the way. I think that's something that's sustainable, and that's the NBA. I have nothing against Nick. Any way I can help, but I'm glad they found somebody who they want to play. Just really, I think you can call it passive-aggressive once again, specifically about that. And Bud, his whole conversation about this is you have to earn minutes. You have to outplay guys in order to get those minutes. By the way, proof in this game.
We saw it tonight.
Yeah.
Who finished the game tonight? It was Mason for a reason, because he played better.
The beginning of the season in October, and to Dwayne's credit, he included this in the article. Nurkic said of Bud, that's the number one thing I've noticed about him that's different from any coach in my career. I've had a lot of them. I was really amazed he got over and spent a few days with me. So he's talking about Budenholzer holding players accountable and saying that's the number one thing he noticed about Bud. when he first got to the team, and of course now, being held accountable. It's a little bit. It's like somebody call the ambulance, but for you scenario for Nurkic. A little bit in this situation where it's really like he's like, I really like when he holds players accountable, but not me. I didn't expect it to happen to me in this scenario. And it's really tough, I think, to read through this article where just the headline alone, if you just read the headline, you think, wow, what's Bud doing? What is he thinking? Not talking to Nurkic for 2 months. Then you read the rest of the article and you're like, what's going on with Nurkic, man? He is not handling, one, being benched very well, and two, not playing at all very well. Like, I think if you're a player in the NBA and you're in a situation where you've started for a long time, eventually you won't. At some point of your career, you will no longer start. You will be coming off the bench. You'll be playing a different role. And how you handle that moment in your career really dictates your next contract, for one, but also the whole next phase of your career, because it's going to be different. And the way that he's currently handling it is just not, I think, a way that you want to see. And for the Suns, they're in a really tough situation. He has another year in his contract. He's not very good right now. He makes a lot of money, and he's still on the team. They clearly don't want him to be. Like, Bud clearly doesn't want him to be on the team. So they're in a scenario where they now have 3 first-round picks. Their priority is, of course, trying to trade for Jimmy Butler. But they got to get rid of this. This guy cannot be on the team post-deadline.
Right, and to your point, they don't have a lot of leverage with Nurk because no one sees him as a positive asset. It would be one thing if he was looked at culturally as a positive. But I think when a guy is looked at as a negative, both culturally and with regard to their talent, that's a disaster. And that's sort of where we're at with Nurk. I try hard to empathize with that experience or I should say to sympathize, but I can't empathize with the experience of what's it like when you're one of the 300 best basketball players in the world for 10 years, and then suddenly your time comes. And it's like, okay, I don't know what my next contract is going to look like. I'm not an NBA starter anymore. You have to start thinking about that next phase of your life. Like, that's a scary thing that I don't think you or I understand. But you're absolutely right, Mike. Everyone handles it in a different way. And the vast majority of guys handle that transition a lot better than a guy like Nurk is right now, who's kind of grasping at straws, it seems.
Really tough. Really tough. It's going to be fascinating, I think, to see where this goes from here for him, because it seems like he's not going to play tonight. You could make a case would have been a night where he would have played. Instead, Mason just continued to play, and Nick Richards was struggling. But no, I mean, it just didn't happen again.
He also made a comment. Do you remember? I can't find it right here, but he was like, "I'm glad that I'm not going to play 2 minutes or whatever."
Yeah,
right.
He did say
that was something he said too. So it's like, in a way, if Nurk isn't even going to be open to the idea of maybe you'll get a spot stretch here or there, well, okay, then you're not actually staying ready. You're just going to sit on the bench.
Quickly, let's talk about the next few games here, and then we'll call it on this one. The soft portion of the Suns schedule is now over, but they still have a few easy games coming up. But a lot of the opponents in the next week or two are really going to be interesting. We'll just go straight up to the trade deadline. I'm going to read all the opponents. Timberwolves, Warriors, Trailblazers. So twice in a row in a 3 nights against Trailblazers. Thunder. And then on the day of the trade deadline, is it February 6th is the trade deadline or the 7th? Now I'm doubting myself. I think it's the 6th.
I'm not sure.
So the 7th, the Suns play the Utah Jazz. So it's possible.
It's the 6th.
Okay, cool. So up to the deadline, they have Timberwolves, Warriors, Trailblazers, Thunder. They're currently the 8th
5
seed.
games.
Yeah. How you feeling about that stretch?
How many are at home? We have at least the Timberwolves and the Warriors at home.
I think just the Timberwolves.
Oh, really? Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
Both games against Portland. It's a 2 straight away games.
It looks
Portland?
like it might be. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. It is. And then at OKC, that's a loss.
That's a loss. Yeah, but the rest
really
of them
annoying.
are. If they play like they did tonight against the Clippers, they could beat both the Timberwolves and the Warriors. They have to win both of those Trailblazers games to stay relevant. Nick Richards, by the way, in a post game recently, mentioned the goal of getting to the 6th seed, which I think was the first time we've heard a player just state that as a goal, which is what they did last year.
Yeah, it was interesting because Nick Richards said that, like, having been with the team for a week. So clearly that's something in their heads right now.
Yeah, which of course just gets them out of the play-in. They have the opportunity to be in the playoffs at that point. They have to win both of those Trailblazers games. Tough game against the Thunder. Timberwolves and Warriors are two Western Conference teams that probably expected to be better this year. And they're still struggling. Both still good. I mean, they're good teams. But the Suns have the opportunity, I think, to win both of those games. They're on a 3-game win streak right now.
There's certainly a kinship that I think Suns fans can feel with Timberwolves fans the way their season has gone this year. I mean, they made a horrible trade that was mostly for financial purposes, and you know, at the same time, they're kind of just a little bit over the hill. Not Anthony Edwards, but you know, guys like Mike Conley, who's been awful this year, and then Rudy Gobert, who's showing signs of age. And the Timberwolves can absolutely kick our ass. Don't get me wrong, but
no Nurk is nice, right?
Yeah, well, and I also just think these two teams are in interesting, similar places right now where really it could go either way. And then, rolling right on into Golden State could go either way, too. They've got Steph, and then that's it for however many years that's been the case now.
All right, well, we'll be after the Timberwolves game, we'll probably record our Patreon podcast on Thursday. So if you want to hear that one, of course, sign up. Patreon.com/thetimeline. You want to do any of these games on playback? Have we figured that out yet? We haven't talked about that.
Okay, hold on real quick. Let me pull up the schedule, and I can tell you which ones I can do.
Okay, perfect. So we might, we'll tweet about it. So, or we'll post about it online. If you want to join us for a playback game, check that out. We'll definitely do a game this week. And by the way, I keep forgetting to mention it. Don't forget to check out ethicalhoops.com. We still have merch up there. If you're interested in any of that merch, check it out there, ethicalhoops.com. But we appreciate you guys.
Can I leave a little plug too?
Sure, yeah.
If you're a new listener, or even you've been listening for a while and you haven't had the chance to yet, if you enjoyed the show, consider leaving us a review on either Apple or Spotify. It really helps us with the algorithm and all that stuff. So,
all right, thanks everyone. We'll
see
be
you guys
back soon.